What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we'll be reviewing round 2 Port Adelaide versus Essendon that happened yesterday at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide getting the job done by 54 points in what was a showcased highlight reel of many different types of highlights that we saw across the ground from many of the players, and a real team performance by Port Adelaide. And Essendon didn't show much fight at all throughout the day, especially starting off with a very slow start indeed. But nonetheless, let's review the game and see what the highlights and the standouts were for Port Adelaide and why Essendon are struggling so much.
Thomas tried hard to thrust the other way, but Farrell and Motlop, a 40-metre handball. The crowd warned Dixon. Wines with the choice kick, and Georgiades. Oh, it's some sort of show they're putting on.
It was good to be back at the Adelaide Oval with all the fans, 30,000 of us standing there cheering on our boys for the first time in 2021, back at the Adelaide Oval since the prelim loss against Richmond last year. It was a pretty easy game, to be honest. Good watching from our end, and really just enjoyable to see Port Adelaide put on a demolition throughout the whole day. Essendon in spurts were putting up the fight. They definitely slowed the momentum, but ultimately their goals came from some free kicks and just not our greatest work down back from Port Adelaide's perspective in defence. But otherwise a pretty solid performance from the boys. Still plenty to improve on, I feel, and against the likes of North Melbourne and Essendon and Adelaide, if you count them as well, in the pre-season. We haven't had a real tough test as yet, but as they say, you can only play who's put in front of you at the time, and we've shown that we're definitely capable of being up there, and we're just showcasing so much of our youth and our talent and our skill, and our game plan seems to be really rock solid, that the only way it really comes undone is with us not working hard enough, and that was in little spurts yesterday, but definitely from the start of the quarter, from quarter one, we just absolutely dominated. 5 goals to nothing within 10 minutes of play. From goals from the like of Georgiades, who came in from the laid out of Marshall, to Charlie Dixon, who kicked a couple early on, and also Pistol Pete Laddams with some great roving skills from his great work in the middle. So the second, third and fourth efforts are definitely there, and when you're having such a momentum swing like that, you got to take the opportunity, and to be kicking down to the cheer squad and with a loud Port Adelaide crowd, the momentum was all there, and we just absolutely dominated from start to finish of that quarter. Essendon were certainly capable of bringing it back ever so slightly, but every time they had a little bit of momentum, we just answered so quickly, and it was just great to watch. And that was led by some great individual performances on the day, starting with Zach Butters. He was everywhere. 36 touches in the end. Him just roaming around in the midfield. He was tough, he was hard, but he's also very skillful, and his IQ as a footballer is second to none. I mean, that bloke is he's so smart in a contest. His hands are so quick. Very young Robbie Gray-like at the moment. And it's very good to see that someone of his calibre, so young in his third year of football, and he's taking the game on. He's one of the best players on our list at the moment. And just to have that luxury of putting him at half forward or putting him in the middle, you were able to rest certain players, was definitely a really positive aspect of our game. And to then mix that with the likes of Ollie Wines and Willem Drew, especially Ollie, I was really impressed with his game yesterday. Was a quiet achiever as such. I don't think a lot of people really noticed his work rate and his work ethic around the ground, and his sprinting and his pace. It looked like he's gained a gear or two to be running. I mean, there was 2 occasions in the third quarter he ran from half back to half forward. Both times Motlop had the ball in hand. One of them he was burnt with, and the other ended up being a great team goal led by DBJ, who started off with a magnificent attack on the footy and attack on the play. I think it was young Cox who had the footy, but bumped him off the ball, and it led to one of the best goals of the day. Great team play by the boys, and that was when you could see that we were putting on a show, and when we had to, we put it into third or fourth gear and really put the sword to Essendon. So those types of performances were great. And also the one thing I also learnt was when Boak is getting 30 touches and is basically unnoticeable for the day. I mean, he built into the game very nicely, and every time he got the ball, it was just hitting a target, and he was so pure with it, and he was so skillful. And he is starting to look like what a Scott Pendlebury is, and that he has half a second longer than everyone else has with the footy. But my point is, you hardly noticed his performance because it was such a standout performance from Butters, from Dixon, from Houston, who was sensational yesterday. He's one of the best kicks in the league, and kicking inside 50, he's done it twice in 2 weeks now, has hit a lead up, and it's just a magnificent kick. He is a magnificent kick, and his attack on the footy as well was sensational. Able to hit targets, as we know. Goal scoring, another aspect of his game he's added, and his run and his carry is, as we've known for a few years now, just exceptional. So all these performances were a massive standout. We know down back were really, really solid, so there's not too much to mention there. I thought the gaining experience of Hamish Hartlett coming into the game was exceptional. He had a few blunders early on, and he looked like he was adjusting to the pace a bit, especially when you haven't played for quite a while across pre-season. There was that one stage where he was just mucking around with the footy. He had it 3 times, and he burnt it 3 times, and eventually got caught holding the ball, which a lot of people got angry about. I just had a giggle because we know Hamish Hartlett's a skillful player. His kicking inside 50 is elite. There was a couple of times he hit targets that no one else probably will. And you know, I noticed him on the wing. I noticed him at half forward. So it looks like he's adding a bit of positional changes to his game, which adds a whole new dynamic to how he can play. And we know he can play multiple positions. He's best across half-back, and his one-on-one work's actually really, really good down there. So I say a special mention to Hamish Hartlett because he was really, really solid, I thought. And there was a couple of instances as well I really felt that you could tell that there was certain players who are starting to drop off a bit. Their pre-season form not really showing in game. Kane Farrell in particular just was probably worst for us on the day. And I think he's going to be a straight swap for Connor Rosie next week. So, he's got a lot to improve on, I think. But overall, you know, if you add everything up, you know, you're going to have standout players. You're going to have players that disappoint. I think Farrell for the last 2 weeks hasn't done a good enough job. So I think he'll go back to the Maggies, who got a really good solid hit out. They got the job done anyway. So that was a very, very solid performance by them. But yesterday's game was another professional performance by Port Adelaide. Very simple job to get done. And I think that's going to be the main thing now as we go into the next month of footy, which I think is very, very crucial for us. The first 6 games, as we know, locked in by the AFL. And after that, we're unsure on what time we'll be playing and all of that. But the next 4 games, West Coast in Perth, Richmond at home, Carlton at the MCG, and then St Kilda for Anzac round at home is a massive month. And I'm thinking if we go in to come out of that 5-1. Richmond game is the tough one for me. I think West Coast over in Perth will be another toughie, but if we can come out of that 5-1, I think we'll be in a very, very good position after the first quarter of the year. Overall, a pretty solid performance. There's not too much to take away, I felt, from it. You know, you get these performances against North and Essendon, and you're like, we're in a solid position now to launch into the tougher games, and we're really, really set up. We're only going to improve. You know, there's only an improvement to come for Port Adelaide. You get the likes of Rosie coming back in. I think Sam Powell-Pepper won't be too far away after that as well. And there's basically your great 22 that you're going to have. So I think it's going to be very hard for spots in the coming weeks for selection. So everyone will have to be on their big performance. And that's going to be Georgiades versus Todd Marshall. That is the big, big question I think we have at the moment is which one do we go with? Marshall sets up very nicely for Charlie. But after yesterday, Georgiades showed that he can hold back, lead in different directions and give Charlie space, but also can get his own footy and kick his own goals and can be another set target. So there's a lot to look forward to. A lot to look forward to. And one thing I do want to touch on with Essendon and Horatio Fantasia, if you're going to play against an old teammate, I'd be giving a little bit more lip. There wasn't enough. I didn't notice enough. They weren't tough enough on him for Horatio. So if you're an Essendon fan and you see that, old player, you're going to give him a bit of lip, give a bit of body on body, but there was none of that yesterday. And Horatio was playing with his own footy when it came in the forward half. 2 goals, 3 again after 4-4 last week. I'd like to see a couple of those points turn into goals. That will become exceptional to watch. But yeah, it was good to see Horatio with the celebration. Some people might disagree with that. I think that's just showing that you appreciate the fact that you're now home playing with the club that you wanted to be at. And it's great to watch. Great to see. It was a happy day. We were back at the Adelaide Oval. Fans were everywhere. Masks, I've got no idea why they're mandatory to walk around with because you're just sitting with people and mingling with people anyway, so there's actually no point to them. But other than that, it was a very, very good day. Well, there you have it, Port fans. That is my wrap-up of round 2, Port Adelaide versus Essendon. A 54-point drubbing of the Bombers, who aren't in great shape at the moment. It's going to be a very interesting week walking up to round 3 against the West Coast Eagles. So make sure you tune in for a preview of that coming this week with a special guest I'll have. So very much keep your eyes out for that one. My name is Anthony. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, come ThePear.